Welcome back to Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. My guest in this half hour is Ana Valdez, who is the CEO and president of the Latino Donor Collaborative. Ana is here to talk about the contributions that Hispanics make to American society and culture. But we're going to start off first with this clip from Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia talking about Hispanic Heritage Month.
Hi everyone, it's Sylvia Garcia, your friend and Congresswoman. We're watching outrageous brazen attacks on DACA recipients by the felon in the White House and his thugs at ICE. And Kristi Noem, she's made it crystal clear. She doesn't give a damn about the rule of law. Hell, she doesn't even know what due process is. That's why this week, Representative Delia Ramirez and I rallied 95 members of Congress to demand an end to this lawless cruelty. Dreamers are Americans in every way that matters. They grew up here, built lives here, and called their country home. They didn't break any laws. But Donald Trump and Kristi Noem want to brand them as criminals, pretending their legal protections don't even exist. We know who the real criminals are. It's the ICE agents abducting parents in the front of their kids and tearing families apart. A nuestros jóvenes soñadores, ustedes pertenecen aquí. Este país también es su casa. Los soñadores han logrado tanto con sacrificio y amor, y eso no pueden ser borrado por el odio de unos pocos. So let's be clear. Kristi Noem, this Hispanic Heritage Month, we will not be silent. We will not be afraid. We will not back down, and we are here to stay. Stay safe, stay proud of who you are. God bless.
That was Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia talking, sending a message to the Trump administration during Hispanic Heritage Month. Our guest in this half hour is Ana Valdez, who is the president and CEO of the Latino Donor Collaborative. Welcome to Deadline DC, Ana. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Brad. It's an honor. I'm excited to share the numbers that we create and to share my thoughts and just converse with you.
Well, that's why we wanted you on the show today. First of all, I'd like to talk about, for you to talk about the contributions that Latinos and Hispanics have made to American society. But before that, let me ask you what the Latino Donor Collaborative is.
Absolutely. So, Brad, we are a think tank. And what we do is produce information and then distribute it about the economic impact of Latinos in the United States. And the good news is my job is easy because I deliver good news. The
Well, we can
contributions
stand some of that here on Deadline DC.
There you go. There you go. And you know what? When you talk about, invite me to share the contributions, they start from the very beginning, actually before the beginning, Brad. As you know, states, and I'm going to say it on purpose with with a Spanish accent, states like Colorado, Arizona, California, Nuevo Mexico, Texas, Florida, Montana, Oregon, all those are Spanish words, and they are Spanish words because they were Mexico before they were the United States. So populations there have been there more than, almost 500 years. And so they start, right? Things like cowboys, right? They were vaqueros. And then, of course, when the United States took over those areas, they became cowboys. But there are many contributions. Things like the UCLA was founded originally by a Latino. Beverly Hills was founded by a Latino. So all those things.
In Los Angeles, which is also our Spanish words, as San Francisco, San Diego, and probably a lot others.
Absolutely. Most of them, Albuquerque and, all those, and in Arizona is the same, right? So in all those cities, San Antonio, those cities were just purely Mexican. Anyway, long story short, so they started there. And then when you ask me what are the contributions today, one of our reports is called the Latino GDP, which measures the impact in productivity and consumption, right, of Latinos. And I got to tell you that we've been measuring it for 8 years. And this last year, it turns out that Latinos contributed with $4 trillion to the GDP of the United States. To put it in perspective, Brad, we actually, Latinos would be the fifth largest economy if they were an economy by themselves. And I'm talking only about Latinos that live in the United States. Obviously, these numbers don't include Latin America. It's just basically Latinos in the United States. And so, they have tremendous contributions. They according to the Department of Labor, 78% of all the new workforce in this country in the next 10 years will come from the Latino community. And that has a lot to do with its youth. It's a very young community, its demographics, and it also has to do with the upward mobility. Latinos are graduating from college in record numbers, and they're buying houses, they are starting businesses. And that is a story that you usually don't hear in media. There's a huge myth of who Latinos are, and it's very far away and very removed from the reality of who Latinos are.
Now, let me ask you this. My great grandparents were immigrants to this country.
Mhm.
The Bannons and Ryans came from Ireland. The LeCounts and the Precourts came from French Canada, Quebec. And I remember when I was a little kid, my grandfather who was the first generation born in the United States, talked to me about discrimination against Irish Catholics and the need there. He said, especially when he was looking for a job the first time, he found all these signs that said no Irish need apply. And that's stuck with him all through his life.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering, is the current discrimination against Hispanics and Latinos, is this just another wave of anti-immigrant hysteria fueled up by the president, or is this something new in American culture?
Well, Brad, like your grandfather, I mean, there's been discrimination against a lot of different communities, right? The Italian community, the Jewish community, obviously against the African American community since inception. I think that there is a tradition, unfortunately, of a specific segment of Americans, right, being, prejudiced against anybody that is new. Unfortunately, I just feel, and I don't feel, the numbers say that the tradition against Latinos has been constant of, rejection. As I said, Latinos were here much before it was America. Even Spaniards were here much before British people came in. And so it's been waves of immigration and then waves of rejection and then waves of immigration and then waves of rejection. We are working on a paper that talks about those waves in different states, in different conditions. But I gotta say, when you have a Supreme Court justice that is actually revising, if you may, the Fourth Amendment to make sure that specifically the Latino community is targeted because of the color of their skin, because of their accent, because of their language, because of the way they work, right? Because they're also going to specific workplaces where people are working. I think that's just barbaric. I mean, and again, we can't be political at the Latino Donor Collaborative. We're just stating a social fact today. This, even in horrible wars or, situations in different countries that we've heard through history, the Supreme Court justice has maintained itself neutral because they don't want to be part of that. In this case, we're seeing just a targeting in all kinds of powers, right? So I do believe that this is different.
Yeah, I just think there's that twisted is the right word. I don't understand how the Supreme Court can legitimize some of the tactics and actions that are being taken to, well, deport en masse Latinos, discriminate against them in hiring and firing. There's something fundamentally wrong here, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show. But we've got to take a very short break now to give our radio listeners a break. But we are going to continue with this interview on Deadline DC with Valdez, who is the president and CEO of the Latin Donor Collaborative. So don't go anywhere. We've got a lot more for you on Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. We'll be right back after this very quick break. Welcome back to Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. My guest in this half hour is Ana Valdez, who is the president and CEO of the Latino Donor Collaborative. Ana, let me ask you this question. I was looking at your website before the show, and you have a list there of the remarkable contributions that Latinos make to the American economy. So why don't you go into some of those? And then I want to ask you a follow-up question is, why don't people in Washington understand that?
Yes. Well, you know what? Well, let me go first through the numbers, right? As you know, Brad, one of the actually almost half, more than half of the GDP of the United States is built on consumption. And Latinos have a $4.1 trillion of purchasing power. So it's not only the work that they do, but it's the consumption, right? We work with many brands, some of the top brands in all markets of consumer products. And the brands that know this, they have a strategy for Latinos as a segment, right? As a cohort. It's not a DEI strategy. It's a business strategy. They know that women are driving the trends. And, in the case of the Latino community, 82% of decision making comes from the woman in the house. So they have strategies for that. So I think some of those brands are really well placed. That's why they're leaders. So they are very aware. But lots of others don't. And exactly as you're saying, people making policy seem to have a harder time, right? Understanding this concept. I think the people that are more based on bottom line are the ones that have to know this. The Cokes of the world and the Targets of the world. And so that's important. But I'm going to tell you some of the numbers that are not only in consumption. Latinos are graduating in record numbers. That wave of immigration that happened from the 1970s all the way to 2007, because that's when the Latino community started being a minority in terms of immigration. Today, most of the immigration comes from Asia. But in that wave of immigration, parents came here with nothing. And they build some wealth and they send their kids to school. And those are the kids that are graduating now in record numbers. Also, Latinos buy 36% of all the new homes in the United States, which, Brad, if you compare to the population, which is 19.5, it's almost the double. But when you actually compare it to the population that is adult, it's almost the triple. So they're buying houses. They're also starting businesses in record numbers. 42% of all the new businesses in the United States are founded by a Latino. Again, compared to the 19.5% of population, that's tremendous. Now, you ask, why are some policymakers and some resource allocators not aware of this? I think, quite frankly, two things. One is prejudice is everywhere. And it's easy to just base your ideas of who people are on media, for example, right? We create, one of the reports that we do every year is the Latinos in media. And we find that even though Latinos are usually 25% of the audience, whether it is in the box office, on theaters, or in platforms, shows, and films, they only have 5% of leads. And half of that, so first of all, invisibility, right? When you're 25% of the audience and you only have 5% of leads, there's a lot of invisibility. But more importantly, half of that 5% is negative. And I'm going to tell you shows that you probably have seen, like Narcos and Mayans MC and Emilia Perez and Griselda, and all these shows that are, critically acclaimed, but that present a horrible picture of who Latinos are.
Ana, I'm going to have to interrupt you because we've got to take another break to bring back our radio listeners. We'll be back with Ana Valdez and Deadline DC right after this very short break. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our radio audience. This is Deadline DC with Brad Bannon. Our guest in this half hour is Ana Valdez, who is the CEO and president of the Latin Donor Collaborative. Ana, let me ask you this. I've heard even from the president, unfortunately, about Latinos taking away American jobs, doing all sorts, committing crimes. Uh, and it seems to me that there needs to be more focus on the Latino community and the contributions they're making to the United States, rather this drumbeat of criticism I hear from Washington. Um, so, is how do you think we can turn that around, or how is the Donor Cooperative trying to turn this around?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Brad, it's so interesting because they say Latinos are really lazy, right? So I don't understand how we can be lazy and take their jobs away. So to start with, right, it's like this incoherence between what we're supposed to be all negative, which actually contradict, itself. So and then again with criminality, Latinos are one of the two communities with the lowest criminality in this country. So yes, again, stereotypes that are false. But what are we doing? So we're creating this data because, again, we go to resource allocators that are basically evaluated and valued based on their bottom line. And we tell them, you got to start including Latinos so that we change this. And I don't know if you've heard, and I'm sure you have, but in the Wall Street Journal, in the New York Times, in Barron's, Bloomberg, CEOs lately, since this violent movement against Latinos started this year, we've heard CEOs from Coke, for example, Coca-Cola, saying, please stop it. Because our sales went down 3.3 and we tie them directly to Latinos not purchasing our drinks. Constellation Brands with Modelo saying, please stop it. Our trend has been positive since we bought Modelo beer 7 years ago. And now Latinos are not gathering, they're not going out because they're afraid. And that takes a toll in consumption. The same with Target, the same with Walmart, the same with many other, T-Mobile. We just had a presentation with Jack in the Box saying the Latino consumer is not coming out. We need, that consumption. So we're bringing the numbers to show that this is not good for Americans because it's bad for the economy. Forget about, the bad precedent in civil, rights, or the bad precedent in what's right to do, right? It's not right to racially profile a community, especially from a country like the United States. But it is really bad for business. We have kids writing to us saying, why is this happening if we are contributing and my parents built the fifth largest economy in the world? Why is this happening? And so, Brad, I think the lesson here is what's good for America, it's good for all communities. And when you're targeting one community in such an aggressive way, This is not good for anybody. And remember this, and I'm going to close with this, to your question, obviously. Um, when you imagine, when you deport half of the people that are working in a construction job or in a field or in a meat packing or in a dairy, production, or when you close a business that was founded by a Latino because there are problems in terms of deportation, you don't only affect those people. You affect the rest of the people that are in the construction site in the factory, the accountant, the CEO, the consumers of the product. So this is extending to places that Americans don't want to see, impacted. For example, the Federal Reserve of Dallas about 3 weeks ago presented a report that says that the economy this year has slowed down in a way that just by August, the GDP had gone down almost 1%, 0.8%, just the first part of the year. Brad, the GDP of the United States needs to continue growing so we can continue being the number one economy in this world. If we actually start seeing decrease on our competitiveness, that's not good for anybody.
Now, let me ask this. You mentioned racial profiling. A few weeks ago, the Supreme Court issued a ruling backing up, very draconian anti-immigrant policies from the administration. That basically said racial profiling is okay. It doesn't violate the Constitution. How do they, how do you think that could possibly be true? I mean, it seems like a gross violation of the due process clause in the 14th Amendment to me. You know, do they have how did they come up with, maybe I'm asking that's the wrong question. You probably, it's not, but it just bothers the heck out of me because it seems like a gross Constitution amendment. What effect these mass deportations going to have on the American economy? That's what I wanted to ask you.
Well, and you know what? To the beginning of your question, Brad, there were three strongly dissents in the Supreme Court justice, and it was
Including the Hispanic Supreme Court
exactly,
justice.
yeah, Sonia Sotomayor, of course, the Supreme Court justice. And so when you see this so heavily political divide in a Supreme Court justice, it's just not right. It's not good for anybody because eventually there will be a Democratic majority in the Supreme Court and
God,
Republicans
I hope
out
so.
there, right? I mean, well, I can't answer that because I can't be political,
Okay, I understand.
but I understand what you're saying. So this is not good for anybody. This is not right. We were an example in the world because of our fairness, our democratic ways, our the separation between the three powers. Right now, there don't seem to be a separation between the three powers. Right now, we are seeing foreign countries saying what is happening in a country that used to be our example. I'm going to give you another example that also
Okay.
undermines that. Just recently, we've seen the administration questioning data that has been done for decades, and data in which the value of our dollar is based. And because of that, the value of many other coins in this world are based. When we start messing up with the impartiality of our numbers, we start looking for trouble in terms of the power of our coin, of our central bank, of our banks, private banks, and of our leadership in general.
Yeah, it's just I don't honestly I don't understand. And people complain about inflation, but we're making it more expensive to build new homes. It just makes no sense to me. We're looking for a growing workforce, of which Latinos make up a major part, to pay Social Security benefits in the future. There's nothing rational about this. It's just blind hatred, it seems to me,
Yes.
which is being exploited by high political officials. Ana, thanks very much for joining us today on Deadline DC. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to make this appearance, and we hope you'll come back sometime
I'd love
to talk to us again.
that.
Uh, that's it for Deadline DC today. I want to thank our guest, Ana Valdez, who is the president and CEO of the Latino Donor Collaborative, and Tim Carr in the first half hour, who is the senior director of strategy and communications at Free Press. I also want to thank our intrepid executive producer, Mark Grimaldi, who makes this mess go and occur regularly every week. Miss the next Deadline DC with the best and very best in aggressive progressive must-see online TV. Miss it at your own peril, because we're coming back with a vengeance.